Now, the US has carried out a drone strike on a car full of explosives in Kabul. Let's go to Washington now, and we're joined by our correspondent Annalise Nielsen for the latest. Annalise, the president has warned that the risk of another attack remains high in the last few days, coming up to that last 24-hour period of the US military presence in Afghanistan.
Well, that is one of the interesting things too. The US still hasn't confirmed whether that's midnight, Kabul time, midnight here on August 31st, and they're obviously trying to use every last hour to get those last 250 Americans reportedly still in Afghanistan out. But today it's one of the gravest responsibilities of any commander-in-chief. President Joe Biden went to Delaware to do what's called a dignified transfer of those 13 service members who died in that bomb blast in Afghanistan. It was there on the tarmac that he saluted those service members along with a high-profile lineup, including the Secretary of State and the Defense Secretary. But this came as there were reports of that car blast in Kabul. So the military reporting that they'd used a drone to strike a car that they believe was full of explosives. They say that the evidence that that was the case was a small series of explosions after that car was hit. Now, the original reports were that there were no civilian casualties in that, but now local reporters on the ground are saying that they've spoken to family members who say a family was killed in that strike. This is a very tense last 48-hour period as we look at the US troops withdrawing, the president warning that there's still risk of ongoing attacks. And it was left to his security chief, Jake Sullivan, today to argue that they're not leaving anybody stranded in Afghanistan, that they're going to get out any of those special interest visa holders as well as US citizens, even if it happens after August 31.
The answer is emphatically yes. We do believe that the United States of America possesses substantial leverage to ensure that American citizens and others get safe passage out of that country, and that if they do not, we can bring to bear enormous pressure on the Taliban with a swift and forceful response to their blocking any American citizen, whether before August 31st or after August 31st.
Now, Hurricane Ida bearing down on Louisiana is dominating media coverage here, and that's what President Joe Biden wanted to speak about today when he was attending a briefing at FEMA, but he did open the floor up to questions, swiftly stepping back when somebody tried to ask him about Afghanistan.
I'm not supposed to take any questions, but go ahead.
Mr. President, on Afghanistan?
I'm not going to answer Afghanistan now.
Pete, yesterday I was in Washington, D.C. at a protest of Afghans. It's there that many of them were telling me about their family members still trapped in Afghanistan. The reports coming from the ground are pretty horrific. Some telling me that they can't get even people with special interest visas to the airport because ground transportation's been reserved for US citizens in these last dying hours, and the Taliban is increasingly assertive around that area. So it's looking more and more likely that they won't be able to get those numbers out even after they've managed to evacuate thousands. But This is going to be a long-running issue for the president in addressing what's happened in Kabul.
Yeah, I found those comments from Panetta really interesting over the weekend too, Annalise, that he believes America will have to go in eventually because of the terrorism threat that's going to emerge from Afghanistan. So we'd go for weeks, months, years. We could be talking about this. Annalise, thank you.